So during this retreat period, we're illuminating foundations of our Dhamma life, our heart's quest. Foundations of it, and how this we establish those, clarify and return to those roots, those foundations, like a winter time, going back to the roots, so that when we come to action, going more external, like spring, growth that comes up is rightly nourished and going in the right direction in terms of actions and journeys and responsibilities and so forth. So actually what we're cultivating really isn't that much different from what's happening the rest of the time. We're just kind of highlighting it and simplifying it, getting more direct to the source of what should be leading us, inspiring us. And during this time, it's the vital ingredient is of time. Clock time may be an illusion, but there is something about the need to allow things and encourage things to mature. They don't happen overnight. One be patient. It's a somewhat mysterious process of fostering development. But by and large, all things will circle around wisdom, energy, and view. When you see these are the, if you look through the various factors of enlightenment and so forth, these kind of underlie everything, really. So they come in different forms. So wisdom can seem a very lofty term, but clearly we started with some wisdom to sense something's not working. There's got to be another way. Try something else. So just that differentiation of wisdom associated with faith. Isn't working, it could be something else. And that gives rise to desire, motivation, chanda. Gives rise to energy, virya. It's correctly tuned, it takes you into the heart, citta, into the center, into the source of where your identity springs from, where your passions and joys and sorrows spring from, where your courage and patience spring from, takes you into that. And requires discrimination, which is the skillful ones, which are the unskillful ones. So these are sometimes listed as the iddhipada, path to fruition, to a furtherance. Iddhi, strengths beyond where one was. Could sometimes seem super normal, but basically something we've gone beyond where we were before. Chanda, virya, citta, vimamsa. Desire, motivation, energy. Citta, heart, take it to heart, take it into your heart, give your heart to it. Discrimination, analysis, vimamsa. Having, opened the heart up and given your heart to it, what do you see? View, wisdom. This is to be followed, this is not to be followed. You see how these factors play. Some are more supervisory, with some degree of action, wisdom, some discrimination, some degree of activities going on to choose and select and manage and steer. Virya, really a sense of, okay, let's get the energy gathered around this and extend it. Very much a directive, however moderate or powerful that is. And your wisdom has to discern what's the appropriate gear, what's the appropriate mode of energy. It's too fiery, it's all thunder and no rain, all flash and bang, no deep saturation of fruition, of results. What kind of energy how can you moderate effort to make it something that's there for you in some form or another all the time? As if it gives the effort just to hold, sustain, stay steady. Go back, return to your source of faith and begin again. Patient effort. Resolved effort to resist the power of defilements that you know are unskillful, just keep crashing over you, to resist. To keep penetrating and inquiring. And persevere. Different forms. But energy is something to be cultivated with wisdom. So you don't get a hernia, but you don't go stagnant. Probably one of the most commonly, some form of energy is probably one of the most common features of the Eightfold Path, in its various forms. The fact it has various forms indicates, the effort to restrain, the effort to persevere, the effort to uplift the mind, to gladden and cheer the mind, the effort to calm the mind and steady it. We'll create some kind of application. This is very much a kammatthana, do it, an action. But action is often too crude a word to cultivate, the subtleties and the scope. But if it doesn't connect to the heart, it's not going anywhere useful. So there we get that which inspires us, we feel, yes, then our energy can skillfully move behind that. Our faith, wisdom indicate, yes, looks a mountain worth climbing. And it's important not to climb the wrong mountain, however much effort you put. It shows that you're going to the right mountain. Or maybe sometimes it's a swamp. Sometimes it's a sea. Sometimes it's a desert. Sometimes it's just a pleasant field with all kinds of interesting sidetracks in it. You can drift off. Sharpening. Know the citta. When it's wandering, when it's drifting, when it's hard, when it's barren, when it's bleak, when it's joyful, when it's, know the citta. Vimamsa. Check it out. Where were the decoys? Where were the snares? Where were the illusions? What was the quality of illusion? Delusion, which is so deluding we don't see it. Kind of filmy mists and shimmerings, repeated shimmerings and mists and paint and images that just go nowhere useful, but just dazzle and fog the mind. And yet can be very poignant and stirring. So you also recognise that Chithurst gets hoodwinked. So it encourages us again to keep discernment. The wisdom quality. And, it's said that this is something you can learn from reading books or hearing talks. You get some ideas. But then it's a matter of taking what you need and applying it to where it's in resonance in your heart. Vitaka vichara. Get the thought, get the idea, resound it. Oh yes. Listen to feel the ripples. If it doesn't resonate, try again. If it doesn't resonate, one more time, rather than resonate, try something else. This process of another wisdom faculty, deep attention, yoniso manasikara. Yoniso, that which is the origin, the yoni, the birthplace, the womb. Things are not yet formed, yet coming into form. What's forming in the citta? How do we form? How do we take on our personality shape, our directions, where are they going? Are we careful about that? Because a lot of us, we have very easy, compulsive personality shapes that burst out. You just jump right out. There we go, compulsive, familiar, here me again. We weren't at the birthplace of that. As the energy starts to gather on those familiar channels and habits. Just wait a minute. Check this out. This person, actually, it arises from impersonal factors. It's made out of familiarity, compulsiveness, and habitual energies. There's no person there in that. Personality is an impersonal quality. And it comes up with that familiarity. What is it? You try to grasp it and it like mist in your hands, and yet so familiar. And so directive. So yoniso manasikara, where does it come from? What's its source? Shimmering, stirring in the mind, in the heart, or welling up. With memory, perceptions, habitual drives and tendencies. So we be at that place and check, guide, steer, so you don't need to be this one. You don't need to have the immediate answer. You don't need to have your finger on the do it button. You don't have to have that sense of, get me out of here, escapism. Take your time. The energy gather around that place where you're coming into being, and it's steady, steadying. What's helpful now? Really what's helpful in that place of birth. Generally, warm-heartedness is helpful. Let's be with that. That's a good energy, heart energy. So in terms of what we need to understand, it can be, when it gets right into that place, it can be very simple. I'm quite cautious about how many ideas I take on, because I'm really inclined to direction in practice towards simplicity, because my mind very easily weaves complexities. Very easily weaves complexities. Delights in them. It's that habit. What do you really need to know? Last Vasa I had a long retreat and I took some books with me, and of course where I was there were suttas. Took out some suttas, opened up one, and it came from two phrases: virtues dear to the noble ones and joyful wisdom. Well, that's it. That's enough for the rains. That was it. Just stay with that. So virtues dear to the noble ones. That's just so beautiful. Not right, wrong, strict, pure, best. They're just dear. A noble one is someone who finds virtue a heart-stirring, heart-warming quality. That's beautiful. I think I want to try and actually work on that. So it's not virtue based upon anxiety about getting it wrong, views and opinions as to who's got it right, me getting nitpicking, guilty, didn't do that right, not good enough, defiled. Just a minute, virtues dear, uplift. And just really the uplift of heart is so important, isn't it? Joyful wisdom. Not brainy. Or if there is brain, at least it's joyful. It makes you feel joyful. Because what we're aiming for is not intellectual prowess, but the ending of suffering and stress, which is an agreeable experience. You do your work with a sense of joy. Work that's not a chore, not labour, but your energy is joyful, like having a workout. Creative, interested. How does this work? This is good. Joyful, like joyful hike. Could be sweat, straight, muscles tired, but you're enjoying it because you're going to a good place and you feel your energy is in that. Energy's not in it. Even walking, getting out of bed's a struggle. If your energy's in it, your heart's in it, you can walk all day, feel great. So, energy, wisdom, to know what lights you, what is able to arouse, gladden, inspire. And taking things to heart, citta, putting your heart in it. Heart is associated, citta very much associated with intention, cetana, that inclination. Intention can be anything from impulse, careless intention, just the impulse that jumps out, deliberate, consideration, inclination, general long-term inclination. So these are the cetana is a sankhara, an activation, a formation, wraps around the heart and moves it places. Citta sankhara. Certain programs and tendencies wrap around the heart and take it places. Most of these associated with emotion, an emotional move, which could be just careless, or it could be something more like devotion. It's an emotional experience, lifting, the moving of the heart. And of course this is where, again, we want to be able to enter that place, which for time to time could be difficult. Things are shut down, heart shut down. Often it's lost. People lose heart. Sunk, depressed. Lonely, Massive pandemic. So there are nearly 300 million people apparently in the world are diagnosed with chronic depression. And other people like manageable, gloomy, cynical, fed up. Loss of heart, because we're giving attention to phenomena that don't gladden, that economics, politics, war, culture. It's kind of brittle glitter, no depth in it. Cheap media, social media full of lies and propaganda and hatred, TV just glitter and show, newspapers ranting, streets with everybody rushing past, shop windows, cars, traffic lights flashing. Where's the food for the heart? The heart just basically sinks and disappears, lose it. You may place it in somebody who then disappoints or betrays you. Heart really sinks. So it disappears. We're just left with our willpower and whatever we're told to do and dragged along by floods of society, social pressure, obligation, duty, just routine, automatic. Do this, do that, automatic. Don't stop, don't pause, just keep going. Because if you stop, you find there's nothing underneath you. Heart's disappeared. And drop down into that depression. So a lot of that, people get frantic just doing stuff to avoid reality. And then when you do slow down, you have to recognize there's going to be some difficult stuff that it's difficult to enter. Heart gets patterned, layered. you're finding, well, what can you do? You know, sometimes you can't. The brain is so bunged up with ideas that just spin you out. So, but then citta sankhara is affected by kaya sankhara. This is a helpful memo. Kaya sankhara, bodily formation, bodily energy. Just as the citta has emotions, which are energetic forms, body has its own energy, life force. Breathing in and out is called kaya sankhara. It's not the only one, but it's often considered the chief, the important one, the real leader. And when you bear that in mind, you think, okay, well, I can breathe. And then you begin to work on it. And often people find that very helpful because it doesn't mean you have to really believe in anything or feel that great or be that brilliant or even be that pure. Impure people can still breathe. You know? And then we do it. The body does it, even when you're asleep. And so it's good to know that. Sense it. What it takes to know breathing, which isn't just about thinking, but about taking it in. Wisdom not just as ideas, but that receptive aspect. It's directive, wisdom's directive, but it has to be receptive in order to know anything, to receive the results. And using that when you're doing breathing. Breathing, it doesn't require a lot of effort to do it, just to hold the body open and then receiving it. This is how it starts, anapanasati. One sits under the root of a tree, calm, open, sheltered, comfortable, safe place, spine erect. There's the effort. Legs crossed, firm foundation. And in knowing, sensing, breathing in, sensing the breath, the flow of it. There's the instruction. Receptive, isn't it? Your action is to hold the spine upright and to pay attention. That's a receptive aspect. Wisdom is receptive. Feels like this. Then your first set of instructions there is, having established that theme, brought it to the front of one's mind, not actually physically in front of you, but at the front of your attention, the forefront. And you're receptive to it. And the receptivity is an aspect of citta. Citta is obviously intention, it does things, but it receives things. And sankhara activates it, but it also opens to receive feeling. That's what gets the sankharas going. When we receive a feeling or a perception, that triggers off the response. The receptive aspect of citta. When you train this way, that opens up. If you remind yourself to be thoroughly sustained, receptive to this. This is knowing long. So your encouragement is to contemplate the breathing, not in terms of a particular point, but of a process which has repeated extent from the beginning to the ending, in breath and out breath. And long. Why long? What's that got to do with it? Because a long breath opens the body, It opens your belly. It opens your chest. It opens your head. Short breath, or rapid breath, which is often what people use, just kind of flutters between the top of the chest and the nose and the mouth. A fluttering breath, agitated. A long breath opens the body and affects the nervous system, calming, opening, calming, deepening. The energy, which has been perhaps shaky, jumpy, becomes steadied by the calming effect. This way it firms up. Once it's calmed, steadied energy firms up, because it's not shooting off in all kinds of different directions in a kind of spurting, spasmodic way, and it's not stagnant. So the body trains the energy. Breathing trains the energy. Very helpful. And then you get the view. Oh, that's how it works. Oh, I see the results. Oh, realization. This is useful. And then it trains the energy calms and steadies. Suddenly you don't get these impulsive, crazy thoughts. You still feel difficult emotions, but you don't get the spurting off into crazy thoughts. Calming, steadying, breathing reduces, gets less. And then you have to train it to sensitize to the bodily, this quality itself, spread it through the body. It takes some skill. Very much a whole body experience though, and tuning into the Kaya Sankara, the quality of breathing as an energy form, not just as air, as an energy form. Energy again. An energy that's regenerative, refreshing, an energy that brings joy and happiness, not just effort and struggle. And you discern that. Your heart gains faith, confidence, and difficult emotions begin to steam off, because you realize these difficult emotions are supported by tangled up energy, contracted, distorted, twisted. You begin to discern energy forms when they're jittering, when they're jumpy, when they're heavy, when they're twisted. And then this breathing, the Kaya Sankara evens that out. Emotions begin to move into something more steady and wholesome. And you can discern this. You can know how to moderate it. It's some simple guidelines, Generally, in-breath is where you get the rising, so you're feeling flat and deadened. You come up into your chest, top of your chest. Just linger more in the in-breath. And the very ending of the in-breath, when it comes in. Swelling. Feeling very restless and stirred out too much, and breathing out. In the base of your belly, all the way down. And linger. And lingering that's a function of mindfulness. Stay with it, stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. It's not yet finished, stay with it, open to it, give it more time to complete. The pauses. And the change. There it is. and this very much affects one's psychologies. Because we don't really do breathing, we receive it, and it adjusts the way we control and direct things. A certain amount of directive is necessary to stay with this process, but one part of the joy is that the process begins to take over and the controlling person can retire. This is happy. So you get that view. The view, less person, more happy. Less me, better. And that's a very simple synopsis of Anatta Sutta. But it's a massive shift from the world, isn't it? Where superstars are mega, people shouting their mouths off. You're making it big time. You're vying for attention. Grabbing power. Massive, big me. Ugly. Just really ugly. And destructive. And obviously fascinating. Obviously, following that way must be some kind of ghoulish, demonic delight in it. I think certainly put forth a lot of energy and effort. And he'd be pretty smart some of the time. That's called climbing the wrong mountain. The mountain of self, the mountain of delusion. A mountain that has no peak to it. So they always want more power, more fame, more wealth. You get a view. Why do you have to have more all the time? You get the view. This again is just this. You just look at it, and you see the view of when the less me, not because I'm pathetic or feeble or ashamed or repressed, but just liberated from that which I didn't even see as a bond, as a problem in the first place. I was just trying to get it better. Find the right place for it. Try to make the world swing around it. Manipulate the world to make it support me. That's the way of the world. Instead, you can eat half the planet, still not have enough. So you get the view. You recognise, this is not an authentic source of where I'm really the source of my citta. This is an infection. It takes over an early place. So let me cultivate deep attention to notice where I'm coming from. The view reminds you. Don't just stay with the view, but bring that view to bear. Back to action again. Where does that defilement arise from? Since clearly human beings are subject to ignorance, defilement, I'm a human being, where does it come from? Yonisomanisikara, you deepen your attention into where I get a little bit grabbing and egotistical and claiming and dominant, pushing and whatever comes up. And they just keep working. This is because the citta, it leaks. It's called asava. Things affect it, and it's this beauty, this beautiful quality gets all diseased. And the energies of the citta leak out into unwholesome, confusing trails. Becoming something, ignorance, sensuality. Look into the source of that. The attraction, the sweetness of that. As the Buddha said, if people didn't see these as qualities of sweet and delightful, they wouldn't follow them. But we do see sensuality as sweet and delightful. Therefore you recognize the danger of it, the hazards. Wise one knows they're not dealing with something trivial, they're dealing with something very potent. They see the hazards. Through seeing the hazard, if you can discern the way out. This is the deepest penetrations of wisdom. But when we're coming, we keep returning to this factor. How come there is such a thing? Where did it come from? And this is something we're endowed with. Therefore, we're endowed with that. You can't create it. You can make it develop, but we're all endowed with it. Human beings are wise creatures. But that wisdom can get distorted into intricate forms of deception, intricate forms of criminality, intricate forms of greed, egotism, technological marvels that destroy things, intricate bombs, and so forth. So, checking wisdom to know wisdom itself is a precious gem, precious thing. Make sure you polish it, nurture it, and apply it where you can keep reflecting on where it's going, where your understanding is taking you. And don't force it. You know what you can know. And what you want to know primarily is which is skillful, which is unskillful right now. Where's stress, where's the absence of it right now. And follow that, there's going to be the results, there's going to be a view coming out of the end of that. But this is what I need to know right now. I don't need to know much more than that at this time. Ongoing wisdom, and you keep applying it. You apply it kind of mundane ways, knowing what you need and what you don't need, knowing how much you need to eat and what you don't need to eat, knowing how to move around in a Dhamma hall without generating noise, knowing how to be aware of time without getting, with a sense of punctuality, without being frantic, selecting your routines, so you're giving yourself time to cultivate and stay steady in what you're doing. Wisdom in looking after your dwelling place, so it's not obstructive, clean, clear, open, uncluttered. This is all wisdom. And what you need to do, what you don't need to do, which is supportive, what's not supportive. Be quite radical in that. So, because this wisdom faculty, even if you're cultivating in around very apparently mundane circumstances, you're still cultivating the same sense of discernment and checking and not following familiar patterns blindly. Checking it. Doing things like, okay, generally most days, being a senior monk, my phone's on, open, emails. No, switch it off. Switch it on sometimes, switch it off. Don't look at it. Unplug the internet. I'm compulsive. I know I'm compulsive. So therefore I make sure I can't follow it. Just pull the plug out. That stops it. where your trigger points are, You set up something that blocks you. It's like, this creature needs training. And find yourself reaching out for something before you even know what you're doing. Going to the vihara, open the cupboard, get a cup of tea, bag of jelly papers. Your hand's in the bag of jelly papers, you're stuffing your mouth without even really knowing you're doing it, just because they're there. How did that happen? Say, okay, next time. Not an evil, it's not a crime, it's just, what did you do? How did that happen? The compulsive reactivity. And check it. No, that's not wise. It's not necessarily evil, but it's not wise. And it could be wise. And no, you're just fostering this quality, and it will actually, it's like you're doing physical exercises, doing push-ups, which seem a kind of boring thing to do, but actually that help you to handle logs. So you're doing small bits of wisdom, they will help you to do the big job, because your wisdom faculty has been kept sharp. You bring your heart into what you're doing, and your heart's into doing the dishes or sweeping the yard or whatever it is. At least you brought your heart in. You brought it up rather than let it sink. It's not this is the most fantastic thing to do or enlightenment itself, but just bringing the heart into presence, where primarily it just sunk away into dreams and cynicism and why bother? Why bother? Because why bother is not something to follow. Therefore you bother. Just because why bother is not skillful. Right? Rise up. Yeah. Sweep carefully. Look after your robes carefully. It's not why bother. They're there. You look after it carefully. What you do beautifully. Do carefully. And your heart's in it. And this means you get familiar. The heart gets used to being present, willing, open, cooperative. You find yourself cooperative and kind. Skillful states arise. Skillful heart states arise. Your meditation becomes more joyful because your heart's in it. So all these factors turn around each other. Pick up the thread where you can.